I'm sure there'll be other folks along for the ride. And welcome to everybody. Hi, Deborah. Nice to see
Hi,
you.
hi, nice to see you too.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Welcome. So this is our the celebration of our um, recognition of the three principles and through thought that has happened to us all, and we get to meet together and have a dialogue and discuss and see what further we might um, understand about this tremendous breakthrough in science and in understanding and in the field of psychology and psychiatry and actually everything that everybody has been that what humanity has been missing um, really since the beginning of time. We've never had a level of uh, breakthrough that is, for as far as we can tell, throughout history. And so this is an important moment in history and an important moment for all of us, and that and that that we're here to discuss and celebrate. So people can ask questions, make comments, pose problems or issues uh, as you see fit, or share things as you may have to share. Um, Brett and I will be sharing things. I certainly will. I'm assuming Brett will if we can ever hear him talk. and uh, but if Brett is rendered mute, uh, so be it. I'm looking at him. Oh, I think he's off the screen. Anyway, so so is there anything anyone would like to say at the outset? The floor is open. Okay, well, let me just say a few other things. Um, so up until 1973, which was when, of all things, a surprise happened to um, a um, a Canadian welder named Sidney Banks, wherein he found uh, and and uh, uh, vocalized that what he had discovered. He discovered something. He had this white light experience, and through it, he discovered this um, something that he knew and said immediately that this would change the field of psychology and psychiatry. And the people in the room, his mother and his mother-in-law rather, and his wife, had no idea what he was talking about and what had happened to him. It was invisible to the naked eye. But but at that moment, he stepped into a different world. And and we've all been lucky enough to come in contact with this miracle or this moment, and to uh, find within that the relevance for ourselves. Um, and so uh, and it has done us all each one of us good, and will undoubtedly continue to do us good, um, because it reveals something fundamental about the uh, nature of mental life, and the spiritual nature of mental life, and how it is one with physical life. And that oneness that Sid um, uncovered in that moment uh, is um, is a wonder to behold. It really does a lot for people to, what it does, I think, is it dismisses these false separations between the spiritual and the physical that humanity has continuously suffered from throughout history. And by resolving that fundamental dilemma, or that fundamental question of the separation between the spiritual and the physical, and by science or by whatever other fallacy, and rendering that a division, or that separation moot, or not true. Um, that was a real turning point in human history, because it released something uh, thereafter that actually pertains to why we're talking. Had it not been for that, we wouldn't be having any conversations, uh, because it wouldn't be known the truth of the reality of the fact of the that thought and feeling are one, thought and experience are one, thought and the power of thought, not not thinking. We don't this is about the principle of thought, and without that principle, combined with mind and combined with consciousness being known, um, we too would be victims of a split universe. And Sid saw the fallacy of the split, and um, began talking about it, and he wouldn't shut up for for the next number of years, several decades. Um, I happened to run into him uh, because I first heard something that was about the fact that the past, uh, the power of the past was to influence behavior and experience and well-being, was a fallacy, and that intrigued me. And I made a beeline to. I was living in Texas, and when I heard that, I moved to California. I told my wife, let's go to California, because I think that's where the kind of epicenter of this teaching is, of these principles, and I want to know more about it. And so my wife, being a good soul, said, "Okay, when are we leaving?" And we packed up our old Impala Chevy and loaded up the trunk, and set out for California. We stored our furniture. I quit my job, quit the business I had going, and we were off on, in another chapter of our lives. And um, and then, as I learned more about this, by the way, I would call colleagues, and I would say, like, I called one of my best friends that I met in graduate school, Joe Bailey, for example, and I said, "Joe, this is an amazing thing has happened. It's a breakthrough in psychology, and um, our lives are going to be changed by this." And guess what he thought? he thought Keith's really gone off the deep end. Like, I don't know what he's talking about. He rolled his eyes at the whole thing, um, and hung up the phone and went about his life. So um, I called him back again, and I called him back again, and I kept calling. I called my professors. I called my colleagues in graduate school and elsewise, and I think pretty much most all of them probably rolled their eyes and wished me well, but figured that I was on LSD or something. I don't know what they might have thought, but I was saying things that they could not really relate to. And so I carried on with the work that I had found, and and I kept learning more, and that really made me even more convicted and convinced that this was really something of a magnitude for history that was um, had not been known before, and so and it would promise the a dramatic improvement in the world's mental health, um, because it would turn psychology from a kind of like vexing problems of where do I belong? These questions that always haunted humanity. Where do I belong? What's wrong with me? What's wrong with these other people? Why do some people get over things seemingly um, rather easily, and other people are scarred for the rest of their lives? What is what's it all about, Alfie? Uh, um, we we had all these vexing questions as a human civilization, and I had them myself, and I so I was it was a big crowd that I belonged to, uh, and essentially we all one by one would say that we all suffered, and furthermore we would probably say some of it at least was needless, but it was hard to know if all of it was needless, and hard to know. um, we were lost in the mire of an unscientific uh, folk wisdom, contemporary psychology, without principles, without science, um, mishmash of lostness, and it was everywhere I looked. I could see it. I didn't know what to really. I didn't know what the answer was, but I could tell we didn't have it. And so I set out on a search, and Valda, uh, uh, not because she was interested in my quest, but she was interested in me. She tells me now, and so we set out for California, and so and lo and behold, we found what we were looking for. We didn't even know quite what it was we were looking for, but we knew we didn't have it. And then we stumbled into a meeting uh, with Sydney Banks. First, I did, and then we did together. And we're covering all this in this book I'm working on, by the way. And so, um, and that was 19 uh, 78 after this breakthrough happened in 73. So, or maybe it was 77, somewhere in there, 77, 78. So it had been going on for some time, and but it still hadn't reached any fringes of the so-called psychological community or the university community or the professional community. Uh, but when we Valda and I went on a trip to hear Sid speak. When we first went on it, she um, again, she wasn't really interested in going, but she wasn't interested. She definitely wasn't interested in being left home without a car because I couldn't find a ride, and so she decided she would go with me. And so we stumbled into this very, very, very modest um, wooden, um, unheated structure on the edge of a lake that was housing this. I think it was a 5-day seminar by Sydney Banks, and there were maybe, I don't know, maybe 50 people in the room, 75 people. I don't really remember the size, but it was very, very small room, packed, and it had lawn chairs in it. It wasn't like a hotel situation. It had lawn chairs and couches and various and sundry types of chairs. But there was a bunch of people in there, and they all were. Most of them had been listening to Sid for a couple of years, and they were all. As I got to know them and get in touch with the room through the ensuing years, they were all remarkably happy, and I wasn't, and so Valda and I stumbled to the when I looked because I'm tall, I surveyed the whole room, and there was not one two there were not two chairs together in the entire room. So, but I spotted one there were two seats together on a couch that was right in front of the speakers. The speaker, whoever the speaker was, I didn't even know what he looked like. But the microphone was there on a stand, and so I thought he's going to be right there. And so I grabbed Valda's hand really firmly, which she tried to get away from, but I got a really big hand. I get and so I got a hold of her hand, and I wouldn't I wouldn't let it go. And she didn't want to create a scene, so I mean, I didn't drag her visibly, but I, I did not let her go, and I got her to the front of the room. And we sat down. Sid comes in, and our life was never the same since, because what he talked about was this breakthrough that we're here for to continue to celebrate, and that was 49 years ago. Well, this happened to him 49 years ago. It'll be 50 years in 2023. It was 1973, I believe. Yeah. So so that's the purpose of our town hall meeting, is to go over that uh, uh, go over what we've learned, and each of us have learned something about this breakthrough. Elsewise, you wouldn't be drawn here. You wouldn't be interested in being a part of this conversation. And so, welcome. Um, and we feel very fortunate, Valda and I, to uh, to uh, to to share. And this town hall is a sharing of that knowledge. And learn more about it. And the people that were in that room that day, they were all sharing too. So this forms a kind of a loose community, but a wave of increasing mental health that will conquer the world. So if we can keep it going, and it hasn't been going extremely, it hasn't been going at the speed of light yet, but then again, it has been unleashed. It was unleashed in 1973. So that said, um, uh, comments, thoughts, criticisms, questions, sharings. This is a town hall, so uh, no comments or questions are frowned upon. You're part of our town, Valda, nice town, and you're quite a nice collection of folks, if we say so ourselves.
Hi, Keith.
Hi.
Judy here from New Zealand. I'm wondering, how's the book going? Do you have any idea when you might complete it? Because I, for one, am dying to read it.
Yeah. Well, I've been working. For some reason, I've gotten really inspired about it of late, and so there's some things that are coming together. I had to find a way to. I could not really get started very well because I couldn't find how to really begin and fold what I might have to say into what because the large majority of it was written by Sid, so that's a given. It was a little bit ragged in places because he was dying when he gave this to me, and so there was some of it that was kind of I couldn't quite tell what to do with it. It has a very long story component, and you guys know with Sid's books, he always loved to tell stories. That was his way of going about teaching. Really, is talking to Richard and talking to Mama Leela and talking to the psychologist of the Enlightened Gardener series, and telling a story about Dear Lysa, and telling a story about one of them that is yet unpublished is the Young Medicine Man. So he loved to tell stories, and so, but this story was different because it was him talking to me, and he talked to me, and he gave me suggestions on what I might write, but I just couldn't get it together as to how to fold all that together. And in the did somebody say something? In the context of what was I going to say? In the context of the history of psychology, and the history of the human race, and the history of psychiatry. And so getting all those threads combined and smoothly articulated and folded in together was it perplexed me for many years. But now I see how to do it, and so I'm doing it. And as to when it will be made available, I can't predict. But I do have significant progress on it that I've never had before.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah, I know. I feel that way too. Where are you?
I'm just south of Christchurch in New
Oh,
Zealand.
okay.
Oh, you mean where am I on here?
Where are you on my screen? Oh, there she
Oh, I
is
have
over
no
there.
idea. It's always different.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh, that makes me laugh how literally I take things.
yeah, yeah. Well, knowing where you are, that you're in New Zealand, that's relevant too. It's nice to have someone listening from New Zealand. Do you have any further? Did I answer your question?
Yeah, you did. I'd love you to maybe say more about, because it's interesting that you sat in the unknowing for so long and then you knew how to integrate it.
Yeah.
And I'm have a little bit more curiosity about that, because I think all of us, well, just me, there's lots of things that I feel like I'm still sitting in the unknown, waiting for me to know what to do about something. And it's a much more comfortable place than it ever was.
Hmm.
I don't feel like I'm wrestling, but I still, at times I'd say I feel a wee bit impatient. My preference would be to know now.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Give it to. I want to know right now. Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't have that sort of. It doesn't come back at you that by. It doesn't seem to come on those terms.
No.
So for me, as regards to the book, I was just so fortunate that Sid gave this to me and didn't give it to he did not want to give it. He made it very clear to me he did not want to give it to anybody else. And but so there was that, and I had that sort of rough draft in my um my inbox. But how to how to organize it, that eluded me, as I said. And then I've done some study and reading, and then I hit upon it. I hit upon the thread, as I mentioned, the thread of the history of psychology without principles, always, um, uh, without and because it was without principles, it was also not a science. Well, that was. And I found other verifications or other authors writing about that. And so that was really helpful. And then some of those writers said that when these principles were found, um, that it would be the completion and culmination of the scientific revolution, which I always knew Sid had something radical and revolutionary. He was saying it all the time, but to have other, historians and thinkers recognize the potential of psychology as a science, that what that would mean. And then I ran across in Sid's own work at the end of the Enlightened Gardener Revisited, he says, I just glanced over. I mean, I read it, but I didn't really get it. He said, I mean, I have to confess at the time when I first read that, because he said that the three principles cover all sciences, all philosophies, all religions, uh, all psychological beliefs, all human behavior. Well, when I I saw that again, and that's on page whatever it's in the last chapter of the Enlightened Gardener Revisited. If you got a copy of it, check it out. Uh, uh, I started to realize I mean, I always known that whatever it was that he saw, and he just kept talking about three principles, didn't he? You know, he was just like a dog in a bone with that. And I thought I'd go to his events whenever I could, and he would start off, and I think, oh, here he goes again talking about those three principles. And it's like I was a little bit bored, to tell you the truth, in my stupidity. Now I'm ashamed to admit it, but I mean, I was literally like, okay, because I didn't really get what he got about their significance, and that their connection to the divine. Um, so so that kind of lost my thread. So that really was invisible to me. And then when I hit upon this relevance, that there is relevance between what happened to him in 1973 and the history of psychology, which has been around a long time, and the history of humankind, which has even been around much longer, and the needless suffering that people go through, and the suffering needlessly that people go through, I should say it that way. Well, then I saw that those were kind of like three threads, three ropes that were actually braided together, and without any, they were braided together by the principles. Well, then I saw a way to couch the book. So seeing those three themes be a kind of like a background rationale for the book, a sort of like the purpose of the book. Then I saw where to start, and then his rough draft coming into play. I saw how to incorporate that, and then I saw how to summate it, to say to tip my hat to the significance of this greatest discovery in the history of science. Because why? Because it wouldn't just hope for world mental health. It actually gives us the software for it, So that's like, I mean, maybe that's been a dream and a hope for people throughout the centuries, but there's no significant progress on that front. Like, we're still having wars, starvation, and suicides, and drug abuse, and depression, and anxiety. I mean, the world's a mess, psychologically speaking, in terms of its health. And so to have a remedy and to abruptly end that sort of suffering, in truth, that's a big deal. That's a very big deal.
Hi, Keith.
I know you. I know the voice. There he is. Hi, Gil. Actually, now I'm realizing after all these town hall meetings that we've had, that when somebody speaks up, they automatically go to the upper left-hand corner. So now I can really, yeah.
Getting
I don't have to go
as we go along. I'm actually in a different location than what I usually am too. So it's, I thought I'd give you all a beautiful view of the Rocky Mountains here. So it's
Oh, yeah, that's
great.
beautiful.
It's a great day here in Colorado. So
Yeah, that is a great view you've got there.
yeah, it's nice. And there's trails right across the road here to take me right up into the mountains. So it's an excellent place.
Wow.
It's an
Wow.
excellent place to study the principles. So
Oh, yeah, right, yeah, yeah, yeah. So are you on vacation there?
it's constant vacation. I live here, right here. I live here.
That's the view
Nice
from
place to
your
live.
back.
It looks like I'm on vacation, but no, it's
That's a view from your backyard.
from my backyard and from
Oh
my
my goodness.
home here.
Wow.
I think
Let's all go move in with Gil.
you all are invited. I have at least one spare room, and I have an office here, and that's the thing. I see clients here, and I think that they're coming more for the view here than they are coming to work with me. So, but whatever
You
it
can
takes.
advertise, you got the view and put up with me.
That's right. In the meantime,
Yeah.
but seriously, certainly Keith, you and Valdo are invited here, and everyone else. I love to see people. We don't have enough 3P people here in Boulder, so it's
Yeah.
I clicked into for one reason, but you said something just a few moments ago where you said people suffering needlessly or needlessly suffering, I think you said first.
Suffering needlessly. Yeah.
And then you changed it to needlessly suffering, I think.
Yeah, they're kind of interchangeable, but I just like
Well,
to
for
turn.
me, I mean that it's what we do with the feeling, and then becomes suffering needlessly. So we don't need to suffer. So
Well, I think the principle. Well, I know the principles have brought an end to the unconscious struggle that most of humanity suffers every day, of suffering needlessly.
yeah,
In one way or the other. You might, if I said to you, do you suffer needlessly? Well, a person might say, well, I don't know, not that much. I worry now and then, but do you, I mean, if a person could really honestly answer that, they would almost always say, oh, absolutely.
yeah,
And to think that we now have a scientific, it's kind of like the world has suffered from COVID. Let's say there's been a world virus that's been around since time began, and now science has developed a vaccine. Whoa, that's a big deal. So suffering needlessly has all those graduations in it. But I like the term, and it was coined by Sid, but I like it because it's very gentle yet relevant, to any person. And I think that's what we do in our coaching, in our teaching, in our helping people, and what we're learning about in our own way, to lessen our suffering needlessly.
and it's immediately practical too. I think that just in considering that, it's just like, oh yeah.
Yeah, it is, isn't it?
Very practical, because that can change immediately just by understanding that a little bit more.
Yeah, and then you understand a little bit more, and then there's more suffering needlessly disappears. And then you understand a little more, and then another chunk of it disappears. And that's a pretty amazing development for human beings.
It's exciting, really.
Oh, I can hardly sleep at night. I'm so excited.
I have another question, actually, it was the one that I kind of signed in for, but I don't know. I don't want to keep other people waiting. So,
We'll give it a shot.
okay. So I'm reading, speaking of books, I'm reading Second Chance again now, and maybe even for the third time, and maybe in most of his books, but he goes on quite a bit here with the needless. By the way, are you the part of Richard in the Second Chance? I know that
Oh,
give me
no,
as Jonathan, but
I don't know. Well, I don't know. I thought I found myself identifying with different characters at different times. You know, a group of those psychologists from Enlightened Gardener, and then so I don't know. But I think those were all they weren't real people,
uh-huh.
but they were characters
Yeah.
that he used to teach through. Like in my book, he has Bruce. I think it's Bruce and Larry. Well, there wasn't any Bruce or Larry, but that was through his storytelling that would he typify, because he was a master of unbelievable capacities, but he put him through I think most of his teaching, except for the missing link, and in my book, he talks, and in his autobiography, which is yet to be published too, he talks more about, he talks more as himself. But so I wasn't Richard, but I might have been, and maybe we're all Richard,
Yeah, I think that's it.
or actually, yeah, Richard's the one who was really sick and dying, right? Yeah.
Yeah, when it starts out, I think. Yeah. So
Yeah, and then there was, what was the other character?
well,
Jonathan.
Jonathan is the part of Sid, I think. So
Well, no, I think Mama Leila is the part of Sid.
there you go too. So both of them, I think. So it's
Yeah.
yeah. Well, I just I mean, in this book, he goes on quite a lot about, I guess, at the very least, needlessly going into the past to, think about or dig up old traumas, and maybe even more than needless, it actually works against, people to bring them up. And again, I may have asked you this before, but not this month. And is there any value to, once we start to get an understanding, a clarity about this, is there any value to then going into past events, trauma events, with that, and hopefully with that new understanding? I mean, as a, I realize that's kind of like technique-ish, I guess, but I'm just wondering, I mean, as soon as you're thinking about it, right, you bring it into the present. So, but I'm just wondering, does it help with clarifying some things to actually intentionally go into difficulties from the past and with this new understanding?
Well, it's like handing.
Unnecessary.
It's like how would you handle radioactive material? You'd want to put some gloves on for sure, right? That's what you're saying about the understanding, because because that's what the principles completely obviate, completely eliminate the relevance to us as human beings in the present moment, being lost in the negativity and the pain and suffering. That's what suffering needlessly, that's where it lives, is in the past.
Yeah.
Or the future, but not in the now. But so I would think, I mean, my basic answer to that would be no. I think sometimes you might be struck by I've found this to have happen. Like I'll be with my mom or when she was alive, or go see some old friends, or visit an old uh, haunt, or what have you, and find myself feeling so completely different that it doesn't even seem like it's even real. It's almost like, and Sid talked about that, by the way, whenever he went to visit Scotland. So he, after his enlightenment for many years, then he went back to Scotland, and he said, "Oh my God, like there's the castle, the ruins of the old castle that I used to play with my lads when I was young, and now, my God, uh, the beauty of it, the beauty of the bagpipers, seeing 1,000 bagpipers and hearing the sound of that music, my God, and the beauty of Scotland, and the beauty, like it was literally like he was walking in a new world, another world, a world from another dimension. That's what he called the paradigm. What I'm calling the paradigm, he called another dimension. Same, I mean the same thing, another dimension. So in another dimension, does that do those negative memories and traumas pertain? Not really. Not really, because they're de-energized. They're made to be, they're just a ghost. And isn't that beautiful? Isn't it beautiful that regardless of the level of pain or suffering that you might have thought was loaded into that by somebody, not me, surely. Oh yeah, it turns out it was you, but to see to see the humility of that, and the chagrin. It was kind of chagrin if you realize, boy, did I do that to myself? Well, yes, you did, my friend. But now it's over. To know the liberation and the magnificence of that freedom that you now enjoy, it renders the past moot completely. Now, might you be exposed to it? Might you go back and visit? Might you even sometimes get caught in the memories of it and feel the pain of it? Well, yes, but that's not that's still suffering needlessly, and the principles have solved that for all of time and all of humanity, and that's a big wow, and so, and us knowing that, and as future generations know that, they too will be liberated from the ghosts of their past.
That's great. That's excellent. Thank you very much for that.
You're welcome, Gil.
And thank you for doing this. Thank you for your generosity in doing this every few months and all.
Oh yeah, I love it. I wish we could do it every week. It would be a blast. You're welcome. What else? Town?
Thank you, but hey, I got something for you.
All right.
It's been a joy so far. Thank you for the questions and the
Yeah.
Oh gosh, I was a little disgruntled at how insightful it is. I know if I show up and I listen, I'll have insights. I'm like, yeah, what's up with that? But I'll take it. Oh gosh, I was gonna ask. It's a little bit of a weird question. I was gonna ask, So the question I was genuinely gonna wonder about, and it's more of a heuristics questions, like in your experience, it's like this understanding is pretty well documented in how you write and speak about it, and the document that you and Valda made, and it's available. And I was originally asked, I'm no longer asking that, but I still want to answer, like to raise the question, which was, in your experience, people are going to come in contact with this. I'll say it like this. In my own experience, it takes years. It has taken me years, I can say at least, to get even a glimpse of an understanding of the paradigm, what it means. And years later, I can account for it and say, well, okay, I got a glimpse of it. Even now, I'm still seeing new things about the red line, which is absolutely wonderful. I'm deeply grateful for that. I love it. I just want to take into account that it does take something. It takes insight, and it's not. That's where the point where I left the question. I thought this question is not going to go anywhere because it doesn't matter. As in coming in contact with this, one insight is, well, that's what's going on anyway. So it doesn't matter if it's like, I wanted to, like, if you present a book and someone reads it, what's going to be the trajectory for them realistically to get like an understanding of this? And my answer would be, from my own experience, well, take a decade. Let's see how you feel about it. See what you think about it. That's a good start, a decade. And that's a rough one, but I'm fine with that. I'm cool with it.
But may I say?
Yeah.
And I think everyone could relate to this. That there was a glimmer at the outset. I don't know, and it was 10 years prior to that arbitrary thing you're saying. Like, you wouldn't have even bothered, that you bothered for 10 years. You were following a needle in a haystack, but you saw the glint of that needle, and you've been on, and you started tracking something. That's what I did too. I heard something when I went into that room with Valda, and I heard something. I don't know. It wasn't like hearing a thing that, I saw the glint of the needle in the haystack, and every single one of you have seen the glint of that too. And you might be here after years of seeing the glint, and you want to say, you got any more glint? Can you shine that thing again? I kind of remember it had a little glimmer to it that stood out. It wasn't hay that I spotted. It was the needle, Am I right, Hank?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So say 10 years or 20 years or 50 years or 50 lifetimes. I don't know. But this town hall meeting is a group of people that have glimpsed the needle. And let that comfort you. You're already there. Don't torture yourself as best you can with, like, I want to get a package of those needles, or I want to get Sid said that to me once. He said all it takes is a glimmer. And he said furthermore, he said, don't even search for this. He was talking about his enlightenment. He said, don't even search for this. He said, don't even search for it. It's just know that it exists. Just knowing the needle exists is good enough. And so don't, figure your life is now complete. Your search is over. And now it's just gravy. You're just living on easy street, you know? You really are. And because something happens to people, by the way, it's been my experience looking at people, watching people. I've seen thousands of people. Well, I've seen thousands come fly through and I never heard from them again. That's been true too. But the ones that got a glimmer or a glimpse or a glint of that needle in the haystack that I'm referring to, they might even turn away from it and forget that they saw it. But then 5 years, 10 years later, they hear about Sydney Banks, or it reminds them of something, and they pick up a book or they tune in again or whatever, and they're like, yeah. So everybody has their own, story about this. And I was a painfully slow learner, I would say, really thick-headed. But I had good company. I mean, I had colleagues who, Valda and I moved. I mean, I don't know if you guys can appreciate this, but in our own lives, we moved from Texas to California, and then from California back to Texas, and then we moved. And then I said, Valda, pick up our belongings. Let's go again. Then we moved from Texas to Florida. And then we moved after a year from Florida to Minnesota. And then we moved from Minnesota back to Texas. And then we moved from Texas to here in Washington State. Well, that took 40 years, all those travels, yada, yada, yada. But we were following the same glint, and we've never looked back, and we've never, we've fortunately. So don't be hard on yourself, if I may ask. Like, and again, back to what Sid said. He said, don't just know that it exists. That is the main thing. So that glint that you've already had is the main thing, baby. And just now you can cash in. You've won the lottery. Enjoy your riches, and say thank you. And don't bemoan your fate that, well, I'm still learning. Like, people will tell me, well, I'm still learning about the principles, as if I'm not, or as if we all aren't. But they seem to kind of have the idea that they should be higher than they are, or further along than they are, or that they're.
Can I briefly interrupt you?
Yeah, sure.
I'm with you. I didn't state my question clear enough. I absolutely love what you're saying.
Okay. And it was meant for the whole town.
Yeah, I know, I understand. I was shutting up. I just wanted to.
Yeah.
So sorry to barge in on that as well.
That's all right. No, you're perfectly fine.
What I wanted to ask was about the trajectory that it takes, but I realized in what you're saying is that it doesn't matter what the insight is. It's a matter of the fact that you can have insight, and having had one is where it's at. I'd like to bring it back to the principles, because that's what simplifies it and makes it understandable for me. Because it's not about, I understand, I appreciate it, that it's not about, like, this is going to go on for as long as I don't know, I'll find out. So that's cool. And I heard,
yeah, right, yeah.
No, that's a good point. I was just trying to ask, like, how did you ever see somebody get like the paradigm insight like in a week? And I don't think that's realistic. It might be like Sid had that, but in people reading a book, there is going to be some. But you killed that as well wonderfully. Thank you for that. It's like, well, this is not about that journey. It's not about the trajectory. It's about the principles. And the principles is like, hey, you see a glimpse. That's it.
Yeah.
And of course there's going to be more to learn, baby. Lovely. And you've been beating that every town hall and every time when I see you and I ask about the form and I forget the formless part of it. And I create some new way to go outside in a way and to find out a new way to go cross the red line. And
Yeah.
you're like, well, no, Hank, stay. Well, by the way, did you notice that? It's like, yeah.
Well, one of the things, can I comment about that? One of the things that I heard Sid say on an old recording, he said, don't say eventually. That'll get you. He said, because this is not a path. He says, it's not a path. It's the way. He says, you get on the path, but when you find what you're looking for, it's the way. And if you think of it as eventually, you're going to miss it. So right there again, I hear, oh yeah, it's not about time. It's not about time. It's not about space. It's not about matter. Those have illusionary values. The principles do not have illusionary values. They are different. They are opposite of that. And so when you think and start thinking in terms of, well, when am I ever going to see more, or what's wrong with me, or whatever, which you may entertain, but if you remember, oh, am I really dealing with the now, or am I dealing with my version of where I am on this theoretical scale and where I should be, and comparing where I should be to where I am? Is that really worth needlessly suffering? No, it's not, because it's against the principles. The principles are not limited to that. This formless energy that Sid saw as the true nature of existence, of our cosmic existence, is a formless, beautiful energy that has no, and that the principles, recognize or honor, but are not limited to by time, space, or matter. Well, then you got an original land that you live in, Hank, and that we all live in, and we can, because of that, we can truly relax. Now, you might stress out, you might get angry, you get frustrated, but if that's true, and I'm convinced that it is, and if you listen to Sid Banks, you'll be even more convinced. But to get you convinced, to go from being convinced to saying thank you, Sid, to say thank you to God for this reality that we have, that was been given. So the cosmic implications, just like as I've mentioned to many people in the past, when Copernicus understood that the sun was the center of the solar system and not the earth, and the sun wasn't a planet, the earth was a planet, when he got that straight, well, that changed mankind's relationship to, not only to astronomy, but it changed mankind's relationship to so many other sciences and to religion, because the Bible had it wrong in 17 places, and it changed our relationship to to our place in the cosmos. We were no longer the center of the cosmos. We were on the third rock from the sun. And so it got us all, oriented about the reality of the story. And the principles do that same sort of thing. It gets us placed correctly in the great drama of existence. And then by the way, Omar and I were working the other day on something, and he said something about death, and I remembered some things that Sid said about death, and so he had them on a note, and I don't even know if I could Omar, could you actually read what Sid said about death? I don't know if you could. Can you pull that up? Listen
Yeah,
to this,
sure.
guy. This is great.
Sure. Well, so good to be here, actually. So good to hear everyone's question and your your insightful answers actually to those questions are just amazing to listen to. But you have to give me a minute to bring that up.
Okay. So death, the death rap, but really, this will pertain to many of you. It might pertain to you guys and to your own grief or your own bewilderment about your place in the universe, or about life, and about and hell. He speaks, it is a very, did you find it yet?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, let it rip.
Okay, so the first quote, well, it's not a quote, it's a tape in Victoria in 1975. And Cindy Banks said, "When you hear truth, you truly, truly know what death is. You know the supreme beauty of death. Death is nothing to fear. The churches talk about hell. There is no such a thing as hell.
Oh,
There
just let me
really
stop.
isn't."
Hold on a second. There's no such thing as hell. Hello. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
There really isn't. The only hell that exists is in the minds right now. We are doing that. Put thereby thought, our thought. There is the hell. Death, the so-called death, is just a drop-in of the body. Simple, really simple. It's a drop-in of the body, but the conscious state remains. The conscious state never dies. Never. This is why reincarnation, you return with the level of conscious state that you left with. The second one, it's a quote from Sydney Banks. He said, "The moment of death is the happiest moment of your life." And the third one is in the Hawaii lecture. And Sydney Banks said, "When you die, you go home. I guarantee you, you go home to God, to the energy of all things."
Amen. That kind of puts it all in perspective, doesn't it? For me.
Hi, Keith.
Hi.
It's Miriam's voice piping up from behind the screen.
Hi, Miriam.
It's really nice to see and hear.
Oh, you got muted.
Sorry. I was just listening to what Hank was saying, and I just had some thoughts. I'm interested to hear what Hank thinks of this little thought that came to me as he was communicating about where this takes us in the journey. One thing that I was thinking about was someone asked me, she was having an initial session. She hadn't learned anything about the three principles, and she had been told by her mother to come and learn about it. So she said, could you just give me a book? You know, I don't have to come and have you teach me. So I said to her, we're actually talking about something which is spiritual. And to quote Valda often used to say, we're using words, but this isn't really encapsulatable by words. And she said it so well. She said, language is all we've got, so we're just going to use that. But we're just pointing to something beyond language. So that just comes to mind when you talk about whether, you know, why a book wouldn't necessarily put someone in the picture. If somebody's focusing on the words, it's really between the lines that the depth of the truth is heard and arrived at. Sometimes through, you know, I'm from the Jewish faith, and we have a understanding of spirituality being communicated from one generation to the next through the humanity and through the people who see beyond the words to something that's communicable in a spiritual way, from, you know, a soul communication. So that's just what I thought about when you were talking about a book, and why a book might be something that wouldn't necessarily help somebody get from no understanding to an understanding of the red line. And just a thought kind of related to that, and related to what you were saying about trajectories and how long it takes. I think that when people come to the three principles, often they are looking for psychological relief. And that psychological relief, personally for me, when I heard about the three principles, was actually very, very immediate. Like, it took a huge amount of things which were on my mind, off my mind very, very quickly. And that was amazing. And what I found subsequent to that, over the 8 years that I am, you know, learning this, is that it's a spiritual growth. And we were put on the earth to grow spiritually. And, you know, we were given many years to do that, hopefully. So in a way, 10 years isn't so long. When we're talking about growing on a deep level and becoming the human beings that we are supposed to become, which is a life's work, we're not looking at psychological relief. We're looking at spiritual growth. And I think that's a different thing altogether.
Thank you. Yeah, they kind of function on different, they drive on different highways, you might say, or they're never the twain shall meet between those two ways of, those two logics, the logic of the I'm trying to think of the word, the different, another dimension of the principles, and that of contemporary man and contemporary thinking and contemporary life, which is all time bound. You also reminded me, Miriam, of Valda's quote, which I have appreciated through the years, that resilience is not being bound by time, by circumstances or the past. So, wow, what a wonderful way to couch it. What are we, you know, if we're not bound by circumstances or the past, what are we bound by? Well, we're not bound. We just sometimes think we are, but that, I love that quote about resilience. And so to to share this comprehension and to be. I mean, what a community we've got here. It's I'm honored to be a part of it, and that's all I wanted to say. Thank you, Miriam.
Testing. Can you hear me? Yes. Oh, wow. My microphone's working at long last. Okay. Okay. Am I loud enough, by the way? Can you all hear me clearly? Okay, cool.
I can hear you good. Yeah.
Okay. That quote from Bowder, Rutillion is not bound by circumstance and the past. Beautiful. And because of my learning trajectory or growth, whatever, I've been learning a lot more about paradigmology. Okay, and one of the things that I only realized maybe a month or two ago is I saw how Bowder came up with that quote. Okay, so if you look at the meaning of Rutillion, it said not being bound by circumstance or the past, right? I saw that it didn't come from the quality of resilience. I saw that it came from what the inside out paradigm means. I saw it came from what the inside out dimension means, right? So when I saw that, I was like, oh, so maybe I could also say mental health is not being bound to circumstances or the past.
Mm.
Well, that works too. Confidence is not being bound by circumstances or the past. That works too. Love is not being bound by circumstances or the past. That works too. I'm just going, well, I think this Bowder girl, she's good, isn't she? So, so suddenly I didn't realize I had a limited perspective on what resilience meant, because here's the quote, something that I totally agree with, but I was limiting myself by just attributing it to resilience. But now I can attribute the meaning of that quote, not to a quality of the inside out, but the inside out itself.
Yeah, wow.
And then suddenly I'm like, oh, so now with confidence, resilience, mental health, love, creativity, all the different qualities we would like to have in ourselves, they all now have the same meaning. They're not disparate parts from each other. It's not there's confidence over there, and there's resilience over there, there's mental health over there. They're now all one. So when you say they're all one, doesn't that simplify so many things for us? It just takes the whole load up our minds. And for me, it's like, oh, there's now only one thing I can learn here, rather than so many different things to learn. Understand what the inside out paradigm means to me, spiritually, not intellectually, of course, insightfully, and that's it. That's all I need to learn. And that got me on a path that had insight on it that I didn't know existed. So thank you, Bowder.
Yeah. And Valda's, thank you, Brett. And Valda being over in the nursing home, 20 minutes away, I'll pass it on, y'all's gratitude to her, because I certainly see the value of what she brought and still brings and that others bring. I think I'm going to begin the quote. There's a quote by Sid. I think I'm going to begin my book with this quote by Sid. It's just one sentence. He said, have you any idea, and I'm going to put any idea in italics, have you any idea of the power when the isness gets released? And that's what happened to him. The isness got released for him. The truth got released for him. And that power has continued and will continue. It won't quit to change the world. When I look at people, I look at myself, and I look at people like all of you guys and others. I see magnificent changes and a needless suffering dropping off your plate, just like you just said, Brett. When you put that together, whoa, you know, that putting other words in that resilience statement, all those many things that bring truth to life, you know, but it's being brought to life by your understanding, and that is endless. And so, what a life that has been opened up for us to learn on those terms. Tremendous. Any other thoughts or comments or questions or anything like that before we end? You guys make me smile. This has been a fantastic session. Thank you all for your contributions. Those that spoke and those that didn't. Thank you all. Thank you all. Well, my friends, we'll see you at least we may see you at the next town hall meeting or other meetings that we'll be enjoying. Omar and I, by the way, have a podcast that we're doing on the essence of change, podcast that you can find on, is it Spotify? Would that be right, Omar, to say that?
Well, it's available on almost all podcasting platforms.
Okay.
Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Deezer, all other, well-known podcasting platforms.
What's the name again?
I will leave I will leave the link to the podcast, and then you could choose whatever platform you wanna listen from. I'll leave the link right now.
Thank you.
And it's called, but it's the title is The Essence of Change.
I will add it into the email and send it out to everyone when the recording is up as well.
Oh, good idea, Brett. Thank you. Very good idea. I love you all. Thank you for being here. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Keith.
All right. We'll see you guys.
All right.
Okay, thank you, Keith. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Next town hall in 2 months. Until then, God bless.
2
God
months.
bless.
Oh, that's way too long. Oh, well.
Thank you. Love you. Thank you so
All right.
much. See you next
All
time.
right.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.